Hey Ronald, so I am going to talk through your essay for the full essay for Maria Stewart, her speech. One note that is very different for the rhetorical analysis essay than, let's say, other essays you've done in the past is that the introduction does not have to be very long, and the introduction, while it starts broad, um, should be speaking about the specific time period and the specific events that you learn in the little blurb at the top of the prompt. So let me just show you what I mean. I don't know if I really encourage you to go back to the assignment sheet and take a look at the bottom for introductions. And it's a brief context, but about the time period or the event in that blurb that is provided at the top of the essay. So your general statement at the beginning, while it is true and could be effective in an essay that is not for this rhetorical analysis, so focused in rhetorical analysis, it talks more of like the effects of racism in today's culture. So you definitely want to keep it to the exact topic and time period of the speech. So for instance, take a look at this prompt here. We're talking about someone who wrote a letter in 1791 about the Declaration of Independence. So you wouldn't start it with like statements about freedom today. You would just deal with that time period. And if you don't know a lot about the time period, just see what you can pull up from in your mind from what you can in the prompt. So this student talked about America's founding fathers and talked about how they were hypocritical because they were slaveholders. And he got this information from the prompt, and then he goes right into his thesis, or she. So it's just really, it could just be three sentences, the context specific to the blurb in the prompt. Thinking about the speaker, remember the occasion, why is Maria Stewart speaking, to whom is she speaking, in the exigence, you might want to go back to that word, but it is the situation in society or history at that time. And then the subject or the topic of which she's speaking, and then finally the thesis. And, the introduction is not worth a single point. So, however, by being specific immediately, you are going to bring the reader in, and it's going to signal to the reader or the grader that you are a focused writer and that you know how to handle the rhetorical analysis essay instead of starting outside of scope. For your thesis, exactly this is it, right? You have the speaker, you have this strong verb phrase, which you could just use in general for any speech, most likely. You have the through, you have your RD 1, 2, 3, and then you have what she's doing, right? And the message to advocate for people of color and women's rights. That's it. So all this, okay, should go. And again, this is, if you read my comment, this is getting into the read like a reader. And we're just here to analyze the rhetoric. That's it. We're not here to make connections to the message beyond the rhetoric. And so I need to pull you back. One thing I noticed that is different in your writing here, go back and compare it to the writing in the charts. Your writing in the charts was very direct, answering the questions that were there, and that was exactly what you need. Those questions, right, from the chart, that's exactly what you need to earn a 6. So somehow, and I keep saying this in class, but you need to figure out how can you personally internalize or memorize every single question, or try your best, right? And so I showed you what I did, and it's on Google Classroom if you want to remember to look at it. I think it's important. Maybe you've already looked at it, but it is important. So I have in this README notes, right? This is exactly what you need to do. I would spend time with it every day, and especially right here, right here. This is your body paragraph. So please go back to that. Let's dig into a little bit more specifically. Get rid of this. You have your first claim. So remember that topic or claim, right, is the writer, the device, and then a universal idea that connects back to the message. So if she's advocating for people of color and women's rights, you might want to add a little bit to your thesis in order to do what? Like, what is she, I don't know. I mean, you might need a little bit something more, right? Why is she advocating for women's rights? There has to be, I'm just thinking there should be a little bit more, and we can talk about this. But if you think back to other thesis statements that, like if I go back in here, so I'm on the document from the work, right? The work doc for the speech, week 10. And it's like to advocate, right? That's what you have. Let me just look back and compare it. You say, to advocate for people of color and women's rights. Okay, so her purpose, you're telling me, is to advocate. I just need to work through this. And so see, she could have just, I don't know. All right, let's talk about that in person. I feel like there could be a little bit more about why she's advocating for women's rights, or a universal idea. It's missing the universal idea is what I want to say, because remember, that is the abstract noun, and people, to advocate is not. We need a universal idea in there. That's what it's missing. It took me a while to kind of pinpoint that, but that is important. So figure out that abstract noun in the thesis, and put that, continue that, and then all this needs to go. I just want to make sure you know that. Okay. So I think because you need that universal idea in your thesis, what's going to happen is that the claims are going to also need that universal idea. Super, super important in writing. You always need the rhetorical device and the universal idea in each claim. So you have utilizes repetition. This right here is what repetition does. Okay, so this should be more in your body paragraph. You're going to analyze like what it does. So we know, right, that repetition gets the audience's attention. You would want to say something unique about repetition in this speech. So you need to connect repetition to a universal idea. Again, go back right here. Here are 3 different ways to write a claim. Very simple. Stewart expresses what? The need for societal change. So change is the universal idea in that, right? We can't hold it, touch it, feel it, sell it, buy it. It's abstract. So I would think about, again, what is that abstract noun or universal idea for her? And okay, so with the claim, you want to connect it to a universal idea that stems from the thesis. So go back to the assignment sheet for this week and really just take a look at what claims look like in the green, and rewrite the claim, because it needs to say more than just what repetition does, right? So in order to talk about her past experiences, again, not a universal idea. So we need to, what is she trying to do? That should be, what is the purpose and message of her speech? That should be reflected in the claim. Okay, so when you have this right here, okay, all of this, except for, so in her speech, Stewart says, "We shall die," to create a feeling of fear to her audience that teaches them a lesson about life and experiences to dictate true reality of slavery. So all this, although she was born enslaved, this is all something you would do in a read like a reader. Right away, we just want to know what is the RD. So again, go back to this right here. What is the RD and how does that relate to the message? You would need to revise your message, right, in your thesis. So that's going to trickle down and you're going to have to revise it in your bodies. Answer these questions and these questions, and that's it for analysis. So that's why I really need you to go back and write this in your own handwriting, put it on your phone, like do whatever you have to do, but this is what you need for your analysis, and that's a 6, right? So here we're veering off, like all this needs to go, okay, because it's read like a reader. Here we get into Stewart employs, and once you say her first name, you can just say the last name of any speaker or writer. Stewart employs repetition by repeating the phrase, "We shall die. If we sit here, we shall die." Now, does she repeat this or is it just "we shall die"? So that's important, right? Just take the segment or part that she repeats. This suggests that if women and slaves don't start to advocate or change or escape, this may be the end of their lives, okay? And that should reflect the message that you're going to add or the universal idea. With the use of repetition, Stewart makes the audience feel downhearted and horrified. That informs the audience that racism is extremely damaging and still awful. Okay, so remember, it's 1832, before the Civil War. So it's not today, right? So with the still awful, I wonder if it's like, make sure that your timing is in history and context is right. I believe her context is more about the sacrifice she wants. Okay, so this I already gave you comments on, right? So I need you to really go back, read my comment. You got to take this out. It's, again, reading like a reader. You know, go back here and just do this. And you're going to do this twice in each paragraph, each different quote. I got to read my comments. I don't know if you read them. So what I'm going to do is give this back to you, right? Because what I see is juxtaposition. I've already gone through it. So why don't you redo it? I want you to look at my comments here. I want you to think about what I'm saying. Your main challenge is, how do you read like a writer? You do that only, like your job is only to consider the rhetorical devices. That's it. And I really want you to pull back. You got to force yourself to pull back. I think also sometimes when we, and I can talk to Miss Morehouse. I know you're working with her, but if this is so specific, and I feel like, because I know you said you got help from Miss Morehouse on this, which is great, but I feel like what you were doing in your charts was exactly what you want to be doing. So I think, and I don't know if she helped you with those too, which if she did, great. But what I'm saying is sometimes when we go to get help from other people who aren't familiar, that we are just analyzing rhetorical device. So I can try to reach out to her to have a conversation with her so she can help you think through it differently. But mostly when people write an essay, it's what you're doing here, right? It's reading like a reader, and we got to pull back on that. It's just not gonna cut it. Revise it, listen to this video, and then I will be in touch with Ms. Morehouse as well to talk with her about how it's different. And then let me know if you have questions. All right.